Hello all. Oh wow. Hello all, and welcome to your reading. This is going to be a reading on what is this trip or travel likely to bring you. So we're going to have three groups for this one. I have group 1 with the lighter, group 2 with the Pritt stick, and group 3 with the case for headphones. So think about the trip or travel that you're thinking of taking, and we're going to get into it. So pause the video if you need a little bit more time, but we've got 1, 2, and 3, and let's get into it. So we're starting with the lighter group 1. What is this travel or trip likely to bring you? Group 1, let's see. Queen of Cups. It's likely to balance your emotions in some sort of way. It's likely to give you a new perspective on your emotions, how you emotionally process things, how you emotionally understand things. It's likely to soften you in some sort of way is what I'm getting. Oh, we got 6 of Swords, which is a travel card in a way. This trip is going to help you move on from something emotionally. This trip is kind of like a representation of you not only moving, like actually physically moving, having like a physical trip, but this is also about you moving on from something emotionally, moving on from something on an emotional scale, being able to relieve yourself of some sort of emotional burden. 8 of Cups. It's also going to help you release like imaginary burdens. What I'm getting is like things that you thought were burdens are not burdens. It's like things that you imagined to be burdensome after this trip are gonna, there's this feeling of just like a lot of things are gonna feel very silly. Like things that used to burden you emotionally are gonna feel very silly after this trip. It's gonna help you ground you. I'm getting this is a really good grounding trip. In terms of clicking you into reality, but not in this like, oh, you're getting a dose of reality sort of a way. Not in that way, but more like, it's like realistically, I don't need to worry about this yet, or I don't need to overwhelm myself with this. Realistically, I don't need to hold on to this kind of emotion anymore. This trip is a lot about your emotions. A lot about, wow, 6 of Cups as well. A lot of cups coming through. The Hermit. This trip is really about releasing a lot of emotional baggage. It's about releasing emotional baggage. It's about releasing emotional burdens and grounding yourself in what realistically matters. Like I'm kind of getting like, this doesn't even matter. This thing that I was thinking about or mulling over in my head and imagining, it doesn't even matter. But a very grounding trip, a trip where you're able to get, this kind of feels like a trip where it's about you. It's about you figuring yourself out rather than, other people. I feel like this trip has the potential to bring forth a sense of innocence. 8 of Cups. This trip is about releasing something, but it's like emotional release. This trip is going to help you not care about something as deeply as you cared about it before. Like it's easier to not care. After this trip, it's easier to release some sort of an emotional burden that made you feel like Jesus, I care about this so much. But there's this feeling of just like, oh, I don't need to care about this. I don't need to care about this. That's 4 of Cups. There's a reigniting of your passion. Ace of Wands, sorry. I feel when you come back from this trip, if this is a trip where you're not moving somewhere, but you're like just taking a trip and you're coming back home, you're going to come back with a renewed sense of passion, with a renewed sense of understanding of yourself, more energy. I feel like this trip is going to help you release stagnant emotions, and therefore you'll be able to cultivate more energy. Healing. This is a very healing trip. You're going to unblock stagnant emotion with this trip. That is the main message that I'm getting, that's coming through here. And I'm seeing like you're being advised to really focus on you for this trip. Don't worry if you're going with other people. Like, don't worry about what do they want to do on this trip. Don't worry about where do they want to go on this trip. Focus on you. But I feel like a lot of you might be taking this trip alone. That's what it feels like here. Affirmation for growth. This is a trip where you're going to grow. You're going to grow, you're going to evolve, you're going to heal. You're going to let go of something. Like, it just feels like emotions that have been stuck in your body that no longer serve you. You'll be able to let go of those. Envy. I am getting this message that this trip is going to help you see that your life is perfect for you. So it might help you release envy or jealousy towards people that you used to think, oh, like this person has a better life because they have this. This person has a better life because they had a better childhood or something like that. There might be something to do with your childhood, your past, and seeing things as like, I'm happy, not in this toxic positivity sort of way, but there is this feeling of just, I'm happy I have had the childhood or the past that I had. I'm happy I experienced this for myself, even if it was tough, even if it was difficult. I don't envy people who had technically had better childhoods or more stable childhoods. Mars, this trip is going to help you gain more energy. This trip is good. Like, I feel that I'm seeing someone coming back. I feel like on this trip, you might even feel a little bit tired. You're releasing a lot of stagnancy on this trip. Like, releasing stagnancy, releasing stuck energy. And releasing stagnancy, releasing stuck energy, and having a completely, there's a liberating sort of energy coming through about this trip. Like, there's a feeling of, I can finally move forward. I can finally move. Yeah, like I can finally move forward is the feeling that I'm getting. I can finally, I finally have enough energy. Wow. Just knocked over everything. That has never happened to me. Like, never. I can finally move forward. Honestly, this feels like a tower moment, right? This all of my cards just falling. All of my decks just like fell over. There's something about looking beyond what's in front of you. Like looking beyond what's in front of you on a material scale. And being like, I'll just move forward. This kind of feels like not being afraid of loss after this trip, not being afraid of loss, or not being afraid of things crumbling. Rose Valley, go forth with a soft and open heart. Love, feminine energy, vulnerability. I'm definitely getting that vulnerability, softness energy. I feel like this trip is going to make you softer. Didn't I say that at the very beginning of this reading? This trip is going to make you softer, but more energetic and more passionate at the same. It's like softer, but more energetic and more passionate. Softer, but more energetic and more passionate. This is very healing. I'm kind of getting like, again, I don't like doing health readings, but this feels like it might even improve your health. Or like make you more aware of your health, but not like in a way that is very positive. What I'm hearing is like, I have the perfect life for me. I don't feel jealous of anyone. I don't feel envious of anyone. I think you're gonna release some sort of a grudge. Like, I don't hold a grudge. Like, it's like you're not gonna hold a grudge anymore. Maybe towards a specific person, but this could be just in general. There might be a sense of forgiving your parents, especially if this trip is like you going to see your parents. But even if it's not, there might be some sort of forgiveness around your parents that you're experiencing. And I feel like once you come back from this trip, you're going to start noticing like energy's going to move easier. Like it's easier to move through the energy around you. Once you come back from this trip, if you're coming back from this trip. There's definitely some sort of unblocking that's happening on this trip for you. Emotional unblocking especially. So that new energy can flow in. So that new energy can manifest. But in a very soft and healing way, not in this like passion and intensity. It's more like, yes, it's the energy that's going to come in after this trip. It's going to be bright and it's going to move fast and it's going to like push you forward. But it's going to be in a soft sort of a way. So that's what I see for you, group number 1, for this trip that you're taking. So I hope this reading gave you some insight. I hope it gave you an understanding. Is actually, before I leave, I just want to know, is there anything that group 1 should like watch out for or look out for on this trip? Take it easy on this trip. You don't need to do, it's like you don't need to do anything on this trip. You just need to go on it and see where it takes you. The trip is going to show you everything that you need to know. You don't need to do the most, is what I heard on this trip. You're going to be very happy with this trip. Once it's over, you're going to be very happy that you took it. You're going to be very happy that you went for it. But the thing is, the less you do, the better. And all your action taking is not about, like, it's not about taking action on this trip. It's about the kind of action that you take once you come back from this trip. That's like a big point that I'm picking up on. So that was group 1. So very, very interesting. Thank you so much for supporting me. Thank you so much for joining me for this reading. So let's move forward now. That was group 1. Okay, we're going to move on to group 2. Group 2. Group 2. So group 2 was the Pritt stick. So this trip for you, group 2, let's see. What can you expect from this trip? King of Wands. You could meet someone on this trip is what I'm getting. Someone important. 5 of Cups. Or maybe reunite with someone. This trip could be reigniting of a relationship that disappointed you. Obviously, it's not going to be for everyone. But I'm getting this trip is going to help you. If it is you meeting someone new, I think this person's going to help you. Like, I'm getting kind of like maybe you'll have a conversation with this person where they'll reassure you that not all is lost, or that like you're not doing as badly as you think you are, or something like that. Or if this is a reuniting with somebody on this trip, I feel like it's gonna give you, like, I feel for some of you, you could like reunite and reignite a relationship with someone on this trip, but only take that if it resonates. But that's coming through quite strongly. Wow, it's coming through very strongly with the Ace of Cups. 3 of Wands. Eight of Wands. There's a lot of passion. This could be also that you're meeting someone on this trip and it's like a passionate beginning. You could actually meet someone on this trip and have like a passionate relationship with them. Now, is it going to be something long lasting? You know, I don't even want to ask. It doesn't matter in this context right now as I'm doing this reading. I think for a lot of you, there could be like if this is like a holiday romance or something like that, that could be something like that. It could go longer. It will depend. I think this is not for, you know, I couldn't predict that right now. But there's a very strong energy of like a holiday romance in this group. Very strong energy of that. And it's going to give you, I think you and this person are like, you're meant to experience this on this trip. You're supposed to give each other that energy. You're supposed to give each other that nurturing, that caring. That passion. It's supposed to help you. There's an important person that you're meeting on this trip for sure. Or reuniting with someone. You will know, like, probably if the reuniting thing applies. But it's going to be very passionate, very fulfilling. But the trick is not to think too far ahead and just accept it for what it is. Especially if this is a short-term trip and you're like, not really getting hung up on, because I'm hearing someone being like, yeah, but are we gonna last? Like, that, it's not about that, is what I'm getting. It's not about that. Scorpio. Maybe you're taking this trip in Scorpio season, but I'm getting that this trip is going to be intense in terms of this passion. And also Scorpio energy, sexual energy. I'm getting very sexual energy with this group. Like there's an intense sexual connection between you and someone. What is this trip bringing for group 2? Life laundromat, choose your own destiny, choices, destiny, consequences. There's a feeling like you're choosing to have some sort of a relationship with someone on this trip. And I feel like you might be choosing it even if it's apparent that the two of you like will not end up together or will not be together in the end or something like that. This is an interesting energy, group 2. It's like choosing something even though this doesn't appear to be permanent. Cleansing. It feels cleansing to choose this experience. It feels cleansing to choose this experience, to go into this experience. Perdition, suffering, and innocence. I feel like you've been going through a really hard time, group 2, and this trip is gonna cleanse some sort of suffering for you, but like I'm literally getting like sexual healing sort of energy from this group for this trip. I mean, if it doesn't resonate, maybe pick another group, but I just, like, if you're going with your partner, it might be that you and your partner have like a very intense sexual experience together on this trip. There's an energy of purging something. It's funny because in group 1, there was this energy of letting something go, but it was very soft. Here, it's like intense purging of like a very intense energy. Most likely through a sexual experience, an intense sexual experience. This energy perplexes me. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's almost, I also feel like there's a level of mystery. Like, I'm not supposed to tell you exactly what's, this feels like a bit of a mystical sort of a trip for you, group 2. It's like I'm not entirely supposed to explain to you what happens on this trip. 9 of Pentacles. You need to find out for yourself. High Priestess, as I say that. I feel there's a level of mysticism surrounding this trip. Like, energy feels weird and odd. You may, what I'm getting is like you may make some odd decisions on this trip that you're like, I usually would never make this decision. I usually would never go for this. I usually would never try to do this. And then it's just like, you're doing it. And it's like, there's almost this feeling like, I can't believe I'm agreeing to this. I can't believe I'm going for this. I can't believe I'm doing this. But I am doing it, and it feels good, and it feels intense, and it feels exposing. And it's like something that maybe would bring you shame in the past no longer brings you shame. It's like, I don't feel ashamed about this. I'm totally comfortable. I'm getting very sexual energy. This might be literally like a holiday romance, and so you're like having sex with someone, but because it's short term or like whatever, there's almost this freedom where you're just like, I don't care. I'm just having sex with this person. I'm just having like a night of passion, and I don't care how weird it is or where it takes me, because I'm doing it because I feel like it. 5 of Cups coming out twice. What is this 5 of Cups about? I'm just getting this sense of like releasing, like purging something, but intensely. Like releasing guilt is coming through. Very strongly. Purging guilt. Like, I don't feel guilty. I don't feel guilty for making these decisions. I don't feel guilty that I'm having a good time doing something that maybe I've been programmed to think that I should be feeling ashamed about. Like, my programming has put me in a position where I should technically be ashamed of this thing. but I'm not. And I used to be, but I'm not anymore. There's something intense. Like I am seeing an intense connection for some of you, but it's like it's just happening on this trip and you're just, it is what it is. It is what it is. I'm hearing that. It is what it is. I enjoy it. I do it. I feel the intensity of it. I embrace it. It's weird, it's mystical, but it's also cleansing. And I don't feel guilty. You know that idea of like a guilty pleasure, except it's not a guilty pleasure, it's just pleasure. Something very intense and weird is going to happen on this trip, most likely involving a sexual experience for you guys. Basically is what I'm getting for this group. So if that didn't resonate, if you're like, no way is that going to happen, I mean, maybe pick another group, but that's what I got for you, group number 2. So let's keep moving along. That was very interesting. So that was group 2. Let's move on to group number 3. Thank you so much, group 2, for hanging out with me and for supporting me on Patreon. I really, really appreciate it. And we're moving on. Okay. Group 3. Wow, group 2 is very intense. Like, I feel the intensity of the energy for group 2. Okay, group 3. What is this trip or travel likely to bring you? 3 of Pentacles. It's likely to resolve, no, that's not what I'm getting. It's more like you could meet collaborators. Because I was going to say it's likely to resolve your, like, issues with collaboration, but maybe that's also a part of it. But this trip is likely to bring you collaborators. It's likely to bring you like-minded people. You're likely to meet people who will want to collaborate with you on future projects, especially if this is a business trip, especially if this is a work trip. This is a very good time. Like, whatever time you're planning this trip, it's a very good time to take that trip. Or if you're thinking like, should I go on this trip now? Yes. I will say, like, when you're watching this video, if you're looking at this video if you had that question in your head already, like, should I go on this trip at this time? Yes. The answer is yes. The timing is perfect for this trip is basically what I'm getting. King of Swords. I'm getting a collaborator, maybe especially a King of Swords type person. So very rational, very reasonable. Someone who gives good advice, someone who is very good at using their logical mind. I'm seeing collaborators. I'm seeing people who want to work with you. I'm seeing people who enjoy the way that you think, and you will enjoy the way that they think. It's going to be very laid back. It doesn't feel like you'll have to break your back to meet these people. It feels like it'll kind of happen naturally, and this is going to be a very peaceful trip. One thing that you need to know about this group 3 is, like, this trip will have no surprises. If you have a certain way that you're planning this trip, or you're like, I'd like to do this is how it's going to go, it's very likely that things are going to go according to plan. I'm not seeing many surprises. I'm not seeing many King of Wands. I'm getting especially male collaborators or men who you could collaborate with coming through with this trip. I'm getting maybe men are going to be very helpful to you on this trip, but what I'm getting is that there's not going to be any surprises on this trip. You don't need to worry that there's going to be some sort of like curveball or something. I feel like some of you may be worried that something's going to go wrong while you're on this trip or while you're traveling. Nothing's going to go wrong. Like, I'm getting everything's going to go according to plan. Whatever you're planning, whatever itinerary that you have for this trip, it's going to be absolutely fine. It's I'm kind of getting, in a way, it's a very simple trip, but you're going to make a lot of really good connections. We've got fire magic. Your guides want you to be a bit more excited about this trip. Some of you might be in a place where you're not necessarily excited about this trip. You're more so thinking about potential outcomes where things could go wrong, or like something might not work out. And your guides are like, you're going to have a lot of fun on this trip. You need to like get into the energy of, I'm going to have fun on this trip. This is going to be a fun time, because it's actually supposed to be a fun time for you, group 3. Focus, stock. I'm kind of getting that this trip is like, focus on this trip being exciting and fun and happy, but also like you, not in this like way of like, oh, everything is just gonna be crazy and fun. Like, you'll need to focus. Why am I getting that for most of you this is like work related? Like, yes, you'll need to focus. Maybe you need to give a presentation. Maybe you need to do some business meetings or something like that. Like, there's that kind of feeling, like there's a lot of maybe housekeeping that needs to happen around this trip. But it's like, just let the housekeeping happen. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be fun. It doesn't mean that you're not going to enjoy yourself. It's like you can be business and still have fun is kind of the feeling that I'm getting. South Node. If you had this type of trip before and it didn't go well, know that this time is going to be different. I'm getting that. So maybe you've done this type of trip before. I think for a lot of you, this is not a trip, like a far away trip. This is kind of like a shorter scale trip or whatever, but maybe you've done this type of trip before and it didn't go well, or it kind of just like something didn't really gel or you didn't enjoy it. I'm seeing this time it's going to be different. You're going to feel a lot more calm. You're going to enjoy it a lot more. And a lot more things are going to go your way is the feeling that I'm that I'm getting when I'm tapping into this energy. It feels like you've had a similar trip before and it didn't go your way. And it's like this time, it's going to go your way much more than the last time. In fact, pretty much everything is likely to go your way. I think you're going to learn a lot on this trip. Like, but it feels like more information-wise, like networking information. You might get people's advice or something like that. That is very useful. We literally have a card called Rainbow Road. You are on the right path. Higher self-alignment and authenticity. This is an aligned trip. This is a trip where it's good that you're going on this trip. And why am I feeling this sense of dread from most of you that you're like, oh, this trip, like, I don't want to go on it. Like, you know, like there's that kind of feeling. Because the last time, I keep hearing the last time I did this, it was terrible or it was not good. Or it's just like, why is there this energy here? Because you want things to be perfect. But the thing is, King of Swords coming out again. You're kind of overthinking this trip is what I'm getting with this group. It's much simpler than... It's much simpler. It's much simpler. Things are going to go your way. Especially if this is a work trip. Like, I don't know if you did this kind of trip before and you had to do a presentation and it went terribly or something like that. Or you're just like, oh, I fucked up that presentation. I fucked up this. I fucked up that. Blah, 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 blah. You're not going to fuck it up. You're not going to fuck it up. Things, in fact, your guys are saying manifest it. Like, intend for it to go well, and it will. But intend for it to be peaceful. Try not to manifest intense emotions or intense energy. Look at it from, like, in fact, I feel like some of you could benefit from manifesting this trip to be a bit boring. And be like, oh, it's just a boring business trip that I just need to do. And in fact, you'll probably have a much better time with it. It's like trick yourself into expecting neutrality from this trip, and it'll pleasantly surprise you. There's that kind of feeling that I'm getting with this group. For a lot of you, it feels like a more of a, like I have to do this trip rather than I want to do this trip. That's what I'm getting. And if you want to do this trip, I think it's an interesting thing to maybe think about why that energy is coming through. Because maybe you're telling yourself that you want to do this trip, but the energy that I feel is like, I have to do it. So there might be a need for some of you. What if you don't need to do this trip at all? I want to ask a question about that. The Tower. I feel like you need this trip to break down your barriers that stop you from being happy. In a way, you do need this trip. This trip is like a really good catalyst for anywhere where you restrict yourself from being happy, just joyful and free. This trip is gonna go, I don't know why. If you don't feel that way, maybe pick another group. But I'm just getting the sense of like, this is gonna go a lot better than you expect. This trip is gonna go a lot better than you expect. It's gonna work out a lot better than you expect. It's gonna be more productive than you expect, and a lot more peaceful than you expect. Focus on whatever you need to do on this trip, like whether it be a presentation or a meeting or, you know, I don't know what it is, like doing some work. Focus on what you need to do, and the rest is just going to come together, is what I'm getting. It's already coming together in a way. But you really don't need to worry. In fact, I just keep getting there's like, you're gonna gain valuable information on this trip. I don't know what this valuable information is, but it's valuable and it's good for you, and it's gonna help you move forward in a very beautiful way. It's gonna serve you. This trip is supposed to serve you. So just see it that way, I guess. And whatever you need to resolve or do on this trip, you can do it. But I am getting the advice to focus, like focus. Don't get like kind of, you know, if it's your presentation and you're not like preparing yourself for the presentation, then of course, like maybe it's not, but it's like focus on that presentation. Don't focus on the trip, focus on the presentation. Focus on being prepared for the meeting. Focus on doing the interview. I don't know, some of you might be doing an interview on this trip or something like that. And if you focus on that rather than like, oh, I'm taking this trip and it's gonna like this and this and this, just focus on what you can focus on. Focus on what you can control. Don't focus on the things you can't control. So yeah, that's what I have for you. I don't think there's anything else to say about this. It's a little bit of a shorter one, I guess. But I feel like this trip is a lot simpler than what you think, is basically what I'm getting for this group number 3. So I'm gonna leave that here. I hope this reading resonated. I hope it helped you, gave you some insight. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and thank you for supporting me on Patreon, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.